So for our population of our international students, the majority of our students are Chinese. We have about 60% that are from China, but then we also have about 5% from Korea, about the same from India, and then about 3% from Japan and the United Kingdom. So the majority of our international students are from Asia. What I've seen, I've definitely seen more Chinese students in particular over the past 5 years or so. That's been an increase quite dramatically, but not just at William & Mary, but around the US. I think it's something that everybody is seeing. But it's increased really dramatically in the past 5 years. I think it's almost doubled. I think maybe that there are a lot of people in these Asian countries that are trying to go to school, but there may not be enough spots there at school, so they're trying to find other places to go. Or it may be that they are just interested in learning a different perspective from their home country.
From my perspective as a Chinese student, I think it's a good thing. More and more people, more and more Chinese students come to the US. We all know the United States have the best education system in the world, and more people in my country come to the US to learn those technologies.
There's a lot to learn when you're coming to the US for the first time, and I know it can be really hard for students, not always, but sometimes it's a big adjustment. So we work a lot with international students, and one of the things that we do a lot of is help explain confusing visas and give them information about finding their way to the US, just the really practical visa information, because that changes all the time. So we have kind of a lot of different ways that international students come to William & Mary. Some have spent some time in the US just visiting, like visiting with family and friends. I think a fair amount of undergraduate students have spent time in high school in the US, or even sometimes doing like an exchange, a shorter term. For graduate students, it's probably more mixed. We see a fair amount of graduate students who have done degrees internationally and then coming here, sometimes for the first time. I always think it's so brave when I see students who are here for the very first time.
When I come to the US in high school, in middle school, it was very different. So most people who come to study in American high schools want to go to US American colleges.
Language can be a barrier. Like, all the students that come here have passed English exams and they have competent English to be here. That's why they're able to come to such a rigorous environment. But sometimes socially it can be hard, where their roommates or their friends or their people in their hall may be talking really quickly, and so they may feel a little bit left out. And the people in the hall may not even realize that the student is struggling and is really wanting to hang out. They may think that they're just quieter and that they may not be interested in spending time with them.
Yeah, compared to what I saw in California, the international students in William & Mary is not adapting as well as them. There are a lot of reasons, though. It's not only because of the students. It's also, there are reasons like William & Mary doesn't have a lot of international students. It's a public school, and most of students comes from the same background, same state. So it's just make the international students a little bit harder to blend in.
Sometimes we've had international students go to jail, and that is, I've never actually worked, or it's pretty rare that I work with a student who's gone to jail for something, but sometimes they'll get arrested for things like alcohol, kind of your standard things that US students get arrested for. But then it has these huge visa consequences, which I don't think they always realize, even though we try to tell them in advance. One of the international students gets suspended for either a disciplinary issue or academic or honor council. So in many cases, they choose to leave the US. But they have another option where some of them will choose to transfer to a new school for a short period. Like some students will go to a community college. And sometimes it also depends on the terms of their suspension, because the Dean of Students office may want them to be enrolled in courses or something. So if that's the case, they may try to stay in the US and go to a local community college or something like that. Or they may go back home and take classes internationally. Once their suspension is over, they usually have to apply for a new visa, which can take a while. And sometimes I think they really worry about whether or not it's gonna make it challenging for them to get a new visa. If it's something related to alcohol, like a drug or alcohol arrest, then sometimes it can be a lot more difficult. Even though it is really hard, sometimes it means that international students may end up facing consequences, even if they weren't 100% sure that it was something that was wrong. And one other thing that sometimes we see with international students is so William and Mary is a really intense environment for everyone, no matter where you're from. And sometimes we see that if they're getting really stressed, they may be less likely than US students to seek out counseling, because they're in their home country. Counseling may be something that there's a huge stigma.
I think most of my friends are now struggling, but there are also a lot of international students I don't know. I don't think I'll go back to China, but I don't know if I will stay in the United States.
Okay, so it's been half an hour since I first came here to film their soccer game. And all I want to say is that it's really hot today, and I really need some coffee, like iced coffee.